I'm Ron Deibert. I'm director of the Citizen Lab here at the University of Toronto. The Citizen Lab does research on information controls from a human rights perspective. Our work is global in scope. We have a fairly large staff of researchers who come from different backgrounds, have different skills, engineers, computer scientists, social scientists, area experts, lawyers. We all work together on topics related to cyber espionage, internet censorship, social media privacy, and other topics. Well, one of the areas that we're most well known for is tracking targeted espionage against civil society. And we have done numerous reports on that topic for over 13 years. As part of that research, we've really gotten into the mercenary spyware industry. So many governments, when they undertake espionage or spy on people, they will purchase from spyware vendors the technology to do that spying. And so we've developed a pretty refined set of techniques to track the various vendors of this technology, most infamously NSO Group's Pegasus spyware. Well, the market for mercenary spyware is growing. Most of the companies in question sell to government clients, and it seems to me, based on our research and some of the other reporting out there, that the technology is proliferating. So, just about every government in every region of the world is interested in doing something like this. So we have found government clients of these various spyware vendors all over the world. In the last 10 years or so, our communication habits have undergone a complete transformation. Every one of us carries one of these around in our pockets. They sit at our bedside tables. They're designed to be intrusive and invasive. They collect a lot of information about us routinely. They're a one-stop shop for a gold mine of data about all of our most intimate, private details. And so if an organization or a person can get access to that device, they can find out a lot about you. And so law enforcement, intelligence agencies have gone to the mercenary spyware market, who supply them with hacking services, basically getting inside the device. So if you compare this to like old wiretaps, a telephone line is wiretap, you might by chance eavesdrop on a conversation that suspects are having, but they'd have to be on that particular phone line at a particular time. If you can hack into someone's device, you can read their emails, you can intercept their text messages, even those that are encrypted. You could turn on the camera, you can turn on the microphone, turning this device into a silent wiretap in someone's pocket. You can listen in on meetings where the hacked device happens to be. A whole conference could be recorded, and you can track someone's location. You can look at all their contacts. You can find out what they've been doing back in time. So it's like a wiretap, but so much more. The way I think about it is the latest versions of spyware are to surveillance technology like nuclear technology is to conventional weapons. It's a quantum leap forward in sophistication and power. With respect to hacking of the sort that we're talking about, we apply a number of different methods. One is forensic analysis of devices. So if a target's device is hacked, we will examine the logs, look for fingerprints that we can connect to certain types of spyware. We also do network scanning. So a lot of the vendors and the government clients leave tracks on the internet. They leave signs of their activities. And if you know where to look, how to search for them, you can gather evidence. So all of this is done under very careful research ethics protocols. One way to think about it is we're like an academic counterintelligence for civil society. We are looking for human rights violations in the digital space, but doing it in a very careful, structured, academic way. Well, the impacts have been pretty remarkable just in this area of our research. We do other areas of research, but if we're just focusing on our work on spyware, just within the last couple of years, it's had a pretty big impact. First of all, if you look in the United States, the Biden White House has issued very strong words condemning raising alarms about the mercenary spyware industry. Recently, there was a House Select Intelligence Committee hearing. One of my senior researchers, John Scott Railton, provided testimony there. They actually introduced bipartisan legislation that includes controls over the mercenary spyware industry. The U.S. Commerce Department put several hack-for-hire firms that we identified on a designated entity list. So just in the U.S. alone, there's been a pretty big impact as a result of the research that we and others have done in this area. It's quite extraordinary, actually, for me as the director of the organization to see this type of change happening in a positive direction as a result of the research. Liberal democratic countries have within their organizations very secretive security agencies that are vestiges of the Cold War. And those agencies usually are very well resourced. They tend to operate in the shadows with very limited oversight and public accountability and transparency. Now that we've entered a new age with this great leap forward in surveillance capabilities, we need to adjust oversight and public accountability and transparency mechanisms. Every government around the world that's a liberal democratic government is struggling with this right now. We're finding out that these agencies are doing things maybe they shouldn't be doing. They're not disclosing to the publics what type of technologies they're using. So we're playing a kind of catch-up game. Here in Canada, it was recently disclosed that our national police force was using spyware, but it was almost like an accidental disclosure. This is not the appropriate way to do it. You're seeing in Europe a lot of discussion now about how to properly regulate intelligence agencies, law enforcement agencies, spyware. There are inquiries being held. I think the work of the European Parliamentary Inquiry into Pegasus is very important. I'm really glad that this is happening. We need more of that type of inquiry in other countries around the world. I would hope that they would be able to continue their investigations, because if you look at even the reporting that's come out of that inquiry already, we've learned a lot that we didn't know before. My hope is that there will be some recommendations made and then measures implemented by European governments following those recommendations in the wake of that inquiry. What we are seeing here is a pattern in Greece that follows patterns in other countries like Spain, Poland, even El Salvador, recent reports of ours, Thailand. We see a report such as ours, which identifies some troubling developments. We identify maybe that there is a government client. We don't know which government agency it is, but we can tell that there's a client of spyware in a particular country. Maybe there's a victim that comes forward. In this case, a journalist just happened to reach out to us, and under a proper research ethics protocol, we forensically examined his device and confirmed it was hacked back in 2021 using Predator. And we also published domains in our report that then the European Parliament security people used to check the opposition politician, the MEP politician's phone for evidence of Predator targeting. But the pattern here is similar. First, there's a denial. Then, usually it must be Russia or some foreign actor. And then, usually there is some consequence. In Spain, the head of the intelligence agency was fired. In Greece, the head of the intelligence agency resigned. Then you see usually calls or pledges to reform. And much depends on whether the citizens and advocacy groups are able to keep pressure on the government. If they are, then maybe we'll see some real reform. But the news cycle is very intense. And one moment you have this scandal, a couple of weeks later, maybe people forget about it, which is why it's very important to keep pressure on, to be relentless, to investigate more, to have journalists look at it and make sure it remains on the news, because the government will just move on if that pressure dissolves. We live in a time when generally resources for investigative journalism are diminishing. That's really tough. But that's counterbalanced by the fact that you have a lot of groups doing work similar to, say, Citizen Lab, Bellingcat, Amnesty International. So we need Reporters Without Borders. We need more groups like that doing this type of careful evidence-based research. The best way to hold governments accountable is by producing facts and saying, you said this, but what about this? We see this, you claim it didn't happen. And we need to keep communicating that to the public so the public understands there's a problem. There needs to be more accountability, and hopefully through legal democratic processes, change will happen. And I believe, I'm an optimist. I believe that we'll see change happen if we all keep working hard to get at the truth.